So I would encourage you, if you can record this, do. I mean, feel free. I have no problems with that, and I'll tell you why it's actually a great idea to let other people record your content. I'd be happy to provide these slides, anything that I can do to help you guys retain this information. About myself, some of you saw me speak back in April of January. When was it? January of 2009 when I spoke at DaVinci Institute. And I was releasing my book, 50 Entrepreneurs, for the first time. It was my very first engagement. And how this came about, spent about 13 years in the corporate grind in sales and was royally burned out, chewed up, spit out, kind of what happens in the corporate America, right? And as you get closer to 40, you're less, you're too expensive, I think, for corporations, and they would be very happy with younger people where I was coming up the ranks. So I got shafted one too many times and finally told my wife, I'm done with this. I'm getting off the treadmill. I know how much money I make these companies because I've been in sales. I'm going to start my own business. She said, Brian, I don't think you have a clue about what you're getting us into. What do you know about starting a business? You've worked for other people your whole life. And I said, okay, you've got a point. She said, I want you to go talk to people who started their own businesses. In fact, I want you to talk to 50. And if you talk to 50, I'll give you my blessing, you can quit your job. About halfway through the 50 interviews, she said, I didn't think you were actually going to go through with this. I was hoping that you were simply, it would be the one thing that I could rest back on so that to not give you my blessing to quit your job, because for her, this was very scary. I'm the primary breadwinner. So the idea was never originally going to be a book. Hey, Anita. I started doing some interviews, and it was purely to do this due diligence that my wife had suggested. And after about the fourth or fifth interview, was getting told by the people I was interviewing, Brian, you're asking some great questions. Have you ever considered putting this into a book? I said, well, no. They said, you really should, because these are kind of things that other people need to know, and it would be great if this kind of information was available in a book. I heard that enough times that I finally said, okay, I better get myself organized. Maybe there's something to this. So I started to basically do it with structure and capture the interviews. At that point, I started to actually record the interviews. So I did about 10 interviews before I actually started recording them. And about 3/4 of the way through it, I was sharing what I was doing with people, and everybody's like, that's a really cool concept. I can't believe nobody's ever thought of that before. They're comparing it to like the Dummy series and the Chicken Soup for the Soul and different ideas. And then my first client, Don McGrath, he said, it would be great if there was a book on 50 athletes. I said, well, Don, I've learned how to do this. I'd be happy to help you if you want to go do the interview. So sure enough, 50 Athletes Over 50 was our first title from another author. And that's when it sort of dawned on me that maybe there's a business behind this, because everybody has a passion for something. Mike Levy, he was the one that published next, Property Managers, Volume 1 and 2. So his passion is property management. So we went out and interviewed successful property managers. Dave Giltner, PhD, interviewed scientists who went into industry, so turning science into things people need. This is Volume 1 of a 10 or 5-volume set. Kirsten McKay Smith is interviewing women who've made over $1 million in direct selling. So these are network marketing, multi-level marketing, Avon, Tupperware. She's interviewing women who have all made over $1 million. Gordon Nuttall did successful job seekers. Would think that this would be a very timely topic, but as I'll go into, it's not always about the book as far as how many copies you're going to sell. Just because you think that there's a dying need for it doesn't mean it's going to sell. Randy Berry did Video Marketing Pioneers. We're actually in the process of putting together his Volume 2 right now. I have 22 authors on board, believe it or not. Several of them have not finished their books, so to get them something tangible before their books are done, we took one interview from each of them, and that's what you see here in the 10 from 10. So these are 10 authors who have yet to be published, however, are working on their books. And believe me, to see these authors light up when they get a book in their hands, even just one interview, that to me is the greatest reward now. And my definition of success is if I'm able to give love in some way, shape, or form at the end of the day, by the end of the day, to someone else, to other people, then I feel that I've had a successful day. And that, for an author to get the book for the first time, that's the greatest joy, because that's the greatest form of love I'm able to share. The newest book we just published is What It Takes to Make More Money Than Your Parents, 50 Interviews with Young Entrepreneurs. From 12 years old to 21 years old, There's kids in here that have already made over 6 figures. And very inspirational stories. And Nick and Nick are doing everything right to promote this book. And I do think that you will hear about this book because these guys have momentum and energy. And the best thing is they've learned from all the learning that's occurred up to this point. This is our 15th book. The things we've learned along the way that the new authors don't have to go through. So I was talking to Tom and Deb about how can I get out and share with people more of what I'm doing, but then bring value to people that maybe don't want to do a 50 interviews book, because I realize not everybody is really up to do a book like that. And that's where the idea for this class came up. So I went into this full-time in April of 2009. So I've got about a year and a half into this. What you'll get to learn tonight is what I've learned working 50, 60-hour weeks for the last year and a half. Learning out how to become a publisher and how to figure out how to do this and actually make a living at it. For me, there's really not an option to go back to corporate America. Once you become an entrepreneur, the wiring changes, as Tom Fry shared in his interview. You can really never go back to the way things were. I hate to say it, but I'm permanently unemployable, right? You hear that. So we do have a lot to cover tonight, and I think what I'll do is kind of crank through it, and then we'll kind of come back and step through some things a little slower. But I'd like to give, because the challenge in teaching any class is all the different levels, right? I have no idea where everybody's at and how quickly you can absorb this, and I hate to hold the people back who are able to move on. And then, of course, if I jump through everything too quick, which is my biggest fear, it will be a complete barrage and you won't get anything out of it. And I've been in that situation, and it's no fun, right? Anita taught a lot of classes. You can give me some advice if I'm going too quick or anything. This is the first one of these guys, so please speak up. I have a thick skin. There's really nothing you can say that will offend me. Plus, this is about the 25th time I've spoken publicly, so it's something that I'm passionate about. In fact, to the extent, after I finished the Entrepreneur's book, I was like, this is great. I have a lot of respect for these entrepreneurs, but I'm not sure at the core this is really who I am. I'm not driven by money like a lot of these, that you really need to be as an entrepreneur that's going to build this big enterprise. I'm driven by the freedom of creative expression, which is the most important thing to me. But what I love to do is speak. So I went out and interviewed 50 professional speakers, and that's what this book is. So I got lessons from the masters. Mark Sanborn's in here, Joe Saba, Gina Schreck, Dave Taylor. I mean, these are the people who are out there making full-time living speaking. So that's why I went out and talked to them. So that really is what I'm doing. And this is basically a form of speaking, right? So the agenda, and we're going to touch on, I'm going to go through this just to try to set the stage. There's actually a slide for each one of these bullets, and there's 4 of these. So you can see there's a lot of information. But I really got into this when I was preparing for this class because the things I was discovering were sort of pretty remarkable. So we're going to talk really quickly. We're going to go quickly through some exercises about discovering your niche. I'm going to talk to you about the movie exercise if you hadn't heard of that before. It's a way that a lot of people are able to find out what they're truly passionate about. We're going to do a 4-up and an 8-up exercise, which is what these blank pieces of paper are for. I think you guys are going to really like this exercise to help you get your head around some ways to write articles, come up with ideas of things you're going to write about. So I'll go into that. Why it's so important that what you do is not about you. That's what I mean by impersonal. And we'll talk about the power of a community when what you're doing is not about you. It's about the community. An obligation is just a motivational saying that I will share with you. How do you start your online identity? And I tell you, the best definition I've heard of an online identity, so this means who you are on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, it's your future self. Who we are online is not who we necessarily are right now. It's who we project ourselves to be in the future. And it's very interesting when you look at it that way. From pixels to print, I'm going to go through basically how do you publish very quickly. And why I'm going to talk about how quickly you can get your content up in an ebook format and why there's a lot of good reasons to start with an ebook. The workflow, the basic, and the 4 phases of a writer, so you'll see how we do that. The marketing mindset of an author, generating traffic, converting traffic to leads, creating relevant content. We're going to go through some titles and taglines, some banners. Web banners are just as important as a book cover, and I'm going to talk about some examples of that. ebook distribution, and all the routes to monetization that exist when you digitize your book. It's far larger than a printed book. I mean, there's really, the sky's the limit worldwide versus, being constrained by a print book. I'm going to go basically through the workflow of getting your work published and paid for. If you do elect to do a print book, which I'd encourage you at some point, if you're having enough success as a digital book, that you do move that into a print book, how you do that, how quickly and easily you can get your blog on Kindle, getting your book on Kindle, which is the largest ebook marketplace. I think they have 80% of the market share, Amazon Kindle, and other channels to sell your book. And then I'm going to walk through, and this, and I may jump to this because this is the most amazing part. And what I did is I looked at all the recent bestsellers that I was familiar with in nonfiction books. And I reverse engineered, how did those books become bestsellers? So you may not have heard about Zen to Done, but Leo Batuta, one of the most successful ebooks of all time. Basically there's a slide for each of these. Josh Kaufman's about to publish Portable MBA. Top 100 blog, now he's becoming a best-selling author. Scott Belinsky, these guys who started HubSpot, long before there was Inbound Marketing, which is a great book, which is very successful. They had HubSpot and on Startup. A local person here who I invited tonight, but she had a conflict, is Laura Brandenburg. She sells off of her website 5 ebooks a day. And you will be amazed at how simple she has everything set up. Impact Lab, the blog that the DaVinci Institute runs, if you've ever seen it before, we're going to actually dive into that and how much they earn off of that. While this isn't a best-selling book, this proves a point about how powerful your content can be regardless of whether or not it's a book. Boy, this guy is going to blow your mind. Have you heard about the book, Shit My Dad Says? And have you seen the history of how that happened? This blew my mind when I looked into it. Wine.about.com. So you guys are familiar with about.com? One of my closest friends is the author of wine.about.com. So I'm going to explain to you guys how that model works and how much money she makes off of that blog. And then the Millionaire Mommy Next Door is a friend of mine as well. She's actually in my book. We're going to talk a little bit about her site. Actually, we're probably going to skip her because I didn't get the information back from her in time. We're going to talk about the new age of journalism, some examples out there. This is also going to blow your mind of how Google is positioning themselves in the marketplace for authors. They will offer everything from soup to nuts that an author will ever need in the age of digital books. And I'm going to show you exactly how they're doing it, and it's all free. All of their tools are free. I mean, it's not simple yet, but once it gets simpler, they're really going to, I think, change the market. How did this guy publish his book? Shit My Dad Says, 1 tweet at a time, and that's really what he did. And then he actually did it a different way than I'm going to show you, and then taking some of these ideas and put them into action, and then exploring potential new markets. We're going to do some brainstorming. So I'm going to watch the time, but we're going to take a break at 7:15. And I think what I'm going to do, you guys, is jump to some of these examples, because I'm telling you that this will help set the stage of what I'm going to share with you guys, that this isn't... All right, so Leo Batuta, he does the Zen Habits blog, and it's actually one of the top 100 blogs. He wrote a ebook called Zen to Done. It was based on the getting things done methodology, but it was a much simpler. If you know anything about David Allen's book, it's great, but it's very complex. And he takes it to a much simpler level. He started selling it through a service called eJunkie, and he leveraged affiliates. And we're going to talk about affiliates. Essentially, he pays a commission to somebody who refers a sale to his site. He also self-published his book via CreateSpace, and he now has a book deal, and the book's already been published, The Power of Less, with Hyperion. So major New York City publisher, but he still made a fortune off this book, Zen to Done. Definitely in the high 6 figures. Keys to success. He had a following. He created great content, really clean cover art, and his whole website is extremely polished, very professional. He got great endorsements. He was mentioned in Seth Godin's book and also Tim Ferriss's book. I mean, that's huge, right? Very simple site. He just switched to this uncopyright model, which if you go to his site, he says, steal everything you want off my site. Although he sells his ebook, it's not copyrighted. And he makes that clear that you can do whatever you want. And I'll tell you why that is actually probably working in his favor now, especially now that he's got a book through Hyperion. The great artwork that he offered to affiliates, so making it easy to market your book. And the easy transactions that eJunkie, it's a very low overhead shopping cart. So essentially you click on it, it's a seamless, clean transaction. And the great thing about eJunkie, it's $5 a month and you really just pay per transaction. It goes through PayPal. Anyway, and he leveraged affiliates. Josh Kaufman, he wrote the Personal MBA. So if you know anything about Josh's site, it's a wealth of information as an alternative to the MBA that colleges offer. He started his blog in April of 2005, and he got a book deal with Portfolio, which is major. I think it's under Penguin Press, and he's publishing his book December of this year. Built a loyal community. He actually had a Ning site I think he still does. That's his community site, which was free. He offers one-on-one coaching, and what was surprising to me is the URL, personalmba.com, became the title of his book. So pick your URL very carefully. Scott Valinsky, I just picked up this book. It's amazing. I'd highly recommend it. But he started a website in a company called Behance, but actionmethod.com. And same thing, you guys. These are the best-selling nonfiction books out there. All of these people started as bloggers. And they started, I don't know when he started his blog, but they've been at it for a few years. These aren't people who just came out and opened a blog and then got a book deal. But here's the point. If you look at any of the new books coming out, either you have to be a celebrity or you have to have a fairly strong following before a publisher is going to even give you the time of day. So if you want to go through traditional publisher, the things we're going to cover tonight are things that you're going to have to do regardless. This is the book I was telling you about, Inbound Marketing. It's one of the top, in the top 1,000 for books, and it was published with Wiley. They started HubSpot, which is an extremely successful site, blog, information for marketers, in June of 2006. Bridging the gap. So this is my friend Laura. So it wasn't 5 sales a day, sorry, 5 sales a week. And she basically was an unemployed business analyst. So when the corporations started laying people off, business analysts were some of the first to go. They were considered expendable overhead. So she wrote a book on how to basically build a freelance career as a business analyst. And she hit a sweet spot, and she's selling 5 ebooks a week. They sell for $20. She created it in Microsoft Word. And I mean, she's selling more books than some of my authors are, and she's selling them online, and she has nothing that she has to ship. The thing about eJunkie, she uses eJunkie as well, is it manages the delivery of the digital content for you, so you don't have to do anything. When somebody orders it, it sends them a private URL that does expire, so they can't forward it to their friends, and that's how they download the book. She said her keys to success are having very relevant blog posts, which help her SEO. I think she picked a killer niche because there wasn't a lot of blogs out there talking about business analysts. Email marketing she does a lot of, and building her brand through volunteering for a professional organization that represents business analysts. Impact Lab I talked about for the DaVinci Institute. Tom and Deborah are okay with me sharing this information. Generates $2,000 a month in revenue. It's all through ads. This is the oldest blog that I've looked at, launched in 2001. That's when blogs sort of started. Keys to success, I mean, look at these numbers. It's a machine, 23,000 posts, 600,000 or 10,000 subscribers, which actually helped get a lot of you guys here. And just what Tom and Deb, I think, have learned about promoting this has really helped them with their success. All right, so this is the guy I was telling you about. So I checked these numbers on Amazon yesterday. This is what just drives me nuts. His first tweet was in August of last year. He has almost 1.5 million followers on Twitter.
Oh, wow.
He was mentioned on The Daily Show.
Who is that?
He's some kid. He moved back home with his dad. He's 28 years old. And he was basically tweeting the stuff his dad said. So his dad's like this sailor.
No.
You know, the sailor kind of guy that says whatever he wants on his mind, and he doesn't care what anybody thinks. Right? So he was just saying these. It's hilarious. Just look at his tweets. I mean, they are.
The name of it's funny.
It is. Well, he was mentioned on the Daily Show. That helps. He got mentioned on Laughing Squid, which is a blog that when you get a Laughing Squid, you certainly get a lot. And then is interested. He said, I was reading the article about him, but he only had like 4 or 5 people following him until Follow Friday happened one day. And this was started by Micah, actually out of Boulder. He started Follow Friday about a year ago. And essentially what it means is on Follow Friday, you tweet Follow Friday and you mention all these other tweeters' names. And that's how you sort of basically, allows you to get more followers, because if somebody says follow Jeremy, what is his name? Justin, and that gets followed Justin, and people read his tweets and they're like, hey, I like this guy, I'll start following him. Anyway, he was published by HarperCollins just May of this year. I mean, it's...
Yeah, he's more popular than Ashton Kutcher.
Yeah, exactly, with the number of Twitter followers. And he's only following one person, by the way. So he doesn't follow anyone back. So he's not one of these guys that has 100,000 followers and follows 100,000. All right, so we're going to come back to, I just wanted to set the stage with the fact that there are people out there. And when I kind of reversed engineer where these books were coming from, it validated that I am in the right place at the right time. I can tell you that it has never been a more exciting time to get into publishing, especially with someone who doesn't have a publishing history. So anyway, we're going to go through. Now, this is overwhelming stuff at first. And I meet with people and walk them through this. They're like, how did you ever learn all this stuff? Well, it took me over a year. And it's just keep in mind that it's little steps that you want to do. I love this quote by Gary Keller from Keller, the guy who started Keller Williams. And it's really simple ideas that have just accumulated over time. So I don't want you guys to get overwhelmed. Just keep in mind these are simple ideas. So one of the clear things on all these successful books is finding that true passion. The more you share the passion, the more you share your passion, the more powerful it becomes. Because if you're sharing your passion with people and nobody gives a hoot, it's going to die, and you're going to find out that, hey, I'm the only one that likes, cornflakes on my cereal. And if nobody else is really excited about that, then I can blog about it, but it's not necessarily going to catch any fire. But if what you're sharing is getting people lit up, then you're probably onto something that could be a profitable niche. My friend Stacy, I'm going to talk about, who does the Wine About blog, she said, Brian, I'd be doing this and writing about wine even if I wasn't getting paid to do it. And that's always the mindset she's had. People like Dave Taylor and other people that do this have a passion and love for what they do. So take the money out of the equation. Would you be doing it? If the answer is no, then you need to keep looking for what you're passionate about. Of course, you lose track of time, and then I like this one. It feels like an addiction. So if somebody tells you to stop and you quit, does it pull you back like an addiction? Because if it does, I believe that may be your calling. And do you wake up early to do it? And do you notice things in the world that others don't related to that topic? So, if you really get into marketing like Anita and you're really passionate about marketing, you start to see the world differently than anyone else. You start to see the world as somebody who notices, when there's an ad on the TV, you look at it differently. When you're looking at a website that you think is, finding success, you're going to look at it differently. So are you noticing things that the rest of the world doesn't? The movie exercise. So I love this, and I heard this at actually a DaVinci Institute startup junkie. So I want you to think about your favorite movie. We all have a favorite movie, and trust me, very rarely is it the same as someone else's. I want you to think about your favorite character in that movie. What about it? There must be a character in that movie that really makes it stand out for you. What are the challenges that character was facing? Specifically, there's something they're trying to overcome, something about their history, right? There's something that's compelling about that character. So the point of this is the characteristics, the distinctions, the things about that character are likely the things that you value greatest in the world. So, and identify other people in the real world that exude those same characteristics. I'm a firm believer that everything you see in the world is really a reflection of yourself. What you notice in the world is a reflection of who you are. So when you watch a movie and it really pulls to you and it really talks to you and you get just drawn in, it's a reflection of something that you really value in the world. And it's unique to you. Nobody else has that exact same set of values, and it's based on all your experiences up to that moment. So if you want to take a minute and write down, not on that white piece of paper, on the yellow piece of paper, your favorite movie, and it can be a TV show, play. There must be one that keeps, you could watch over and over again. I'll give you guys an example as I go through this. So mine was Twin Peaks. Remember the show from the 80s?
Oh.
My favorite character was Agent Cooper. I mean, he was the guy that I just loved to watch in that. The challenges that he was facing, so he was trying to reveal the truth, right? He was in this town where everybody was never telling the truth, and his number one thing was integrity and truth. He was trying to expose the truth, and integrity was his greatest defining value. So for me, when I went through this, I realized that 50 interviews for me gives me an opportunity to express that passion, which is exposing the truth. The interviews that we do expose the truth about a particular field or industry or anything that you might be contemplating. And that's what my whole life I've sort of been getting to the truth. That's why I maybe didn't fit so well in the corporate world, because I would call a spade a spade. I mean, it may not be the political correct thing to do sometimes, but come on, this was the truth. It was the elephant in the room, so not always the most popular thing to bring up, especially when you have a customer on the other side of the table and you're telling the truth. Your boss doesn't always want you to tell the truth if the truth can cost the company money. Anyway, so this is one technique. Now you guys are going to love this next one, the 4-up. So I want you to take one of those white pieces of paper and fold it in half, like this. And then fold it in half again. Okay, so open it back up. So in this top corner, I want you to think about what part of your current job would you continue to do even if you weren't paid to do it. There must be something about your job, even if you hate it. There's got to be some aspect of it that, whether maybe it's the drive to and from work. And I'm going to keep moving along so you guys can think about these a little more. In the next box, what would you be doing if money wasn't a factor? So if you won the lottery tomorrow, what would you do tomorrow when you got up? There's got to be something. Well, we'll get into some of the other things here in a minute. What's the one thing when you're doing it, you lose track of time? So for me, when I pick up my guitar at 10 o'clock at night, I can play till midnight and not even realize that 2 hours just went by. And my wife knows that if I pick up my guitar, I'm not going to be coming to bed for a while. And that's something I lose track of time. What's the first thing you do when you've been gone on vacation for a while? I firmly believe that the things that we go to first are an indication that there's something we're really passionate about. And why are we drawn back to do that? So for me, back to the guitar example, maybe it's picking up the guitar. Maybe it's checking your email. Maybe it's checking your Facebook page. There's got to be something that you go right back to on a theme in your life that you've always sort of drawn to. Maybe it's writing. Maybe it's something that well, I don't want to give you guys too many examples. So I just mentioned when it gives you energy when you do it. Most importantly, because if it doesn't energize you, this is going to be a draining. This shouldn't drain you to sit down and write about this topic. It should actually really light you up and give you energy. And when it's not present, you miss it. It's like an addiction, as I mentioned earlier. So now I want you to take the second piece of paper, and you guys can do this again at home. So we're just sort of going through the motions. So fold it in half. Fold it in half again, and then fold it in half one more time. So you're getting something like this. All right, open it back up. And guess what? You've got 8 boxes now. So in each of these boxes, I'm going to explain to you why it's in this format here in a second. What magazines what do you subscribe to? What are you actually willing to pay to subscribe to? Whose job do you most admire? What did you collect as a kid? One of the entrepreneurs I interviewed was John Fisher, who started Sticker Giant. He collected giant Garbage Pail Kid stickers as a kid. And now his business is stickers. He creates stickers. He found what he was truly passionate about, and it was a childhood dream of his, a childhood obsession. What events are you willing to pay to attend? This is huge. I mean, think about it. If you're willing to plunk down $80 to go see John Mayer, I mean, that's huge these days, right? Concerts are so expensive. What is it about John Mayer that makes me want to pay that much money? Are there blogs that you read, particularly on a topic? Your favorite TV shows? You know, what do you watch? What kind of shows are you typically drawn to? What do you like to do on the weekends? And where do you go on vacation? And when you're there, what do you do when you're on vacation? I think that's a key thing too. Is there something you have a tendency to do? So the reason we do this like this is because I want you, we're going to go back to this here when we get into creating content, but the idea is that I want you to look at this after you've drawn it and see which one of these things really like catches your eye or makes you sort of go deeper into, zoom into it when you write this on, and then circle that. Then I want you to flip the paper over and write in the left-hand box that thing you just circled. And then from that thing you circled, I want you to write 7 more things that relate to that thing you just circled. And those 7 more things are actually your first blog posts. It's the first titles of the things that you're going to write about. Did you guys get that, or you need to go through it again? Okay, sorry. So 8 up or 4 up. You can do this 4 up as well. Maybe I'll just start with that. I'll leave that there because you guys are writing. When you write down things in these 4 boxes or these 8 boxes, and you go back and there's one thing on here, because they might be totally unrelated, circle the one that really kind of pulls you. There's got to be one of those things that's like, well, that's cool, I love that. It just gives you a good feeling when you think of it. When you flip it over and you write that same topic in one box, that gives you another 8 boxes to expand on the topic. So this is kind of a mind map, brainstorming exercise where you now have 7 more topics that you're kind of branching off from this one. And the point is, what I'm trying to get you guys to realize is that you have something significant to offer to the world related to what's up here. But you just need some structure to get it together so that you can identify with it. And again, this will be the material for your blog posts. I mean, you can take the topic of marketing. Maybe Anita, we can practice with this one. And you could do, email marketing, Facebook marketing, all the different topics. And then guess what? Facebook jumps out at her, right? So she flips the paper over, and now she's doing Facebook marketing. And now she's talking about 7 more things related to Facebook marketing. Anita's just got all the material she needs for a blog post. Something to go research. Did you guys get it that time? Mm-hmm. Okay. This is so important, and this comes from the talk I give on successful entrepreneurs. This is the distinction between successful and unsuccessful entrepreneurs. I think this is the key distinction between successful and unsuccessful authors. It's not about you. When I say impersonal, I don't mean that in a negative way, but it's more about the community and what the world benefits from with you sharing what you're working on, what you're passionate about. If it only serves you, it's not going to feel energizing. I love Impact Lab because impact is a very important word. It's all about the impact you have on others. That's what gets people so fired up. I mean, when I get up in the morning, it's not about me, it's about the impact 50 Interviews is having on all the people doing these interviews. And when you can identify something that's not about you, that's a purpose greater than yourself, this is the kind of stuff that greatness comes from. All these books that have been successful was clearly these people, it wasn't about bolstering their own reputation. I'm actually working with an author right now. He's what I would call a reluctant author, but he's brilliant. And he's very humble, but he's one of the most brilliant minds on this topic I've ever heard. And I told him, I said, you have the most amazing gift to share with others. He's given a talk, but he doesn't want to sort of stand out as some sort of authority by writing a book with his name on it. He has some limiting beliefs in that department about what it means to be an author, and he realizes that stops him. But that he's really the best author because his book and his content is going to be so valuable to other people because he takes himself out of the equation significantly. Teachers and pastors are a good example I always talk about of the impersonal goal, about the purpose greater than themselves. What they do is clearly not about themselves, it's about everyone else and the benefit they're having with others, the benefit they have to others. This gives you the strength to overcome adversity, and I heard the best definition. It gives you the strength to get through, to suffer through the painful parts of the process. Anything worthwhile is not going to be easy. You guys know that, right? It's not rewarding if it's too easy. So if it's going to be difficult, you've got to have strength to get beyond the difficult points when most people get stopped. And if most people get stopped, it's because I firmly believe they haven't found that impersonal goal. They haven't found that purpose greater than themselves. And this really helps you build community. The reason I have 22 authors is because they have caught wind that 50 Interviews isn't about Brian. It's not my name on it. It's 50 Interviews. It's about the concept of sharing this collective wisdom with the people they interview. And they own their titles. They own their topic, and really they realize, I think they've seen the benefit that what we do serves beyond themselves. And this was the obligation that I feel you do have when you tap in to what your unique niche is and what your true passion is you have an obligation to share with the world. I love this Martha Graham quote. It's really not, it's not an option. And it was going to pull you out of bed in the morning because you have to go down and write something. And you know that what you're going to write is going to have an impact on somebody. Greg Stroh was one of the guys I interviewed from Mix One Beverage. Okay, he's a multimillionaire. He doesn't have to waste his time starting another company. He sold Izzy Beverage for millions. But he said, Brian, entrepreneurship and capitalism in our culture, in our society, is a unique gift. Not all countries have it. And he said, I feel an obligation that I have to be out there generating jobs and contributing and taking, really capitalizing on the opportunity that our country provides us. So he truly lives this. All right, so your online identity. How are we doing on time? Making yourself easy to find is very important. You should, of course, be on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter. Again, if you're not, then people aren't going to find out about you. And I'm not going to get into how building profiles, but be very specific about who you are. And going back to this unique niche that you're going to go through, and I think you're not going to find it immediately. I think you're going to try a few different things, and there will be that one passion that comes out, and start to build your online identity around that. Think about your online identity as the future you. It's who you plan to be. So go ahead and have fun with it. Nobody knows you out there. The thing I tell my authors when they come on board is say, listen, I don't know anything about your past. Who you are to me is who you choose to be in the future, and who you are to all of us. The best thing about what we do is our community of authors, because when somebody comes on board, we know nothing about their history. We have no biases, no prejudices, no opinions. I think that the most rewarding thing when I left high school and went to college was that I left all that baggage of my high school reputation behind, and I was a new person, and I was really who I chose to be. It was a great freeing feeling. Same thing when I start a job with a new company. Nobody knows me. I don't have any baggage. I don't have any issues that people keep bringing up about Brian. Oh, he's that guy, No, I have an opportunity to make a fresh start. Sharing your passion with others and inviting others to join you. These are just the most common forms of getting your content out there. And I guess the one thing I've learned is the more you can latch on to an existing marketplace of content, the larger the audience is going to be. So we're going to talk about WordPress in a second. You can host your own version of WordPress on your own URL. But the truth is, when you host your blog on WordPress.com, you're immediately exposed to a much larger community, because you're sort of like on this high traffic highway versus some country road that nobody ever drives down, because there's already existing traffic. When somebody's on a blog that's related to yours on WordPress.com, did you know there's a little thing that pops up and says you might like? I don't know exactly how it does it now, but because they keep changing it. But essentially, they don't want you to ever leave WordPress.com. They want you to get everything you need from all the bloggers on WordPress.com.
Stay there all day.
Yeah, and that's works much better for them. Same with About.com and Examiner. These guys, very interesting model. They're a Denver-based company, but they're owned by Anschutz. Anschutz? Yeah, big. Well, newspaper guy. And then Squidoo and Hub Pages are some things that you can do. You've heard this before. The most important thing is don't spread yourself too thin, because you're going to be ineffective in all of these. Really pick one or two and really focus your energy there. If you decide, if you cruise around the web and find some of these sites and something about Squidoo is easy to use, by all means, spend all your time on Squidoo. If Hub Pages is right for you, then do that. I'm going to show you, too, why I think that having your old WordPress blog ultimately is a good way to go. But the question is contributions on Wikipedia.
Or any other Wikipedia.
Yeah, it's great, but just keep in mind, what are you linking to? If you're not linking to something that furthers you, then you're really just doing a service for Wikipedia. And they're very gracious to you for that. And if it's something you're passionate about, that's great. But Wikipedia doesn't give you like an opportunity to sign with your name. But what I've done on Wikipedia, Bob Parsons from GoDaddy's in my book. If you look at the Wikipedia page for Bob Parsons, there's a link to his interview with me. So I'm getting a lot more traffic for anybody who's searching Bob Parsons, because Wikipedia is the first thing that comes up. So you're very smart in figuring that out, that what you want to do is attach yourself to the blogs and the sites that have the traffic. And I'm going to show you a comparison between About.com, Examiner, and iVillage, which I didn't put up here either, and how much traffic those sites get. And why about.com is one that you guys really need to pay attention to, because they have a unique partnership with Google, so that they're not playing the SEO game is not a level playing field. I'm sorry. When you have the kind of relationships that the New York Times has, which owns about.com, with Google, you come up first, and Google makes sure of that. So the fast path to publishing. In a nutshell, these are the 3 steps we're going to walk through. So first, you create your content online, whether it be in the form of a blog, Q&A on LinkedIn, maybe it's your Facebook page, on Twitter. Most important thing is to get yourself out there as much as possible. And again, it should be something you enjoy writing. It may take you a lot of posts before you start to get a following and have people link to you.
On Facebook, is it better to have a fan page or a, what's the other one, page or group? Or?
You know, they've gone to just one now, isn't it? It's just, there's not a fan in groups anymore. It's just a fan page. Yeah, they got rid of that. It was confusing. Then create a document that really defines your passion and the topic that you're writing about. I really should be using a specific example. So entrepreneurship was something I was passionate about. So I didn't write a manifesto, which, by the way, is just it's a new phrase for a white paper. It's a little less corporate, but essentially that's what they are, is white papers. I created early on 101 plus resources for entrepreneurs. And what that was a collection of all the resources and websites that these entrepreneurs were sharing me, because I asked the question, do you have any recommended resources, websites, anything that you suggest I visit? And I was getting this long list of things. So simply for me, so that I didn't forget it, I started creating all the links into all the sites and resources into a Word file. I put those on, I put a fancy little title page on it. I put that as a downloadable ebook through eJunkie. I didn't charge anything for it, but in order to get it, you had to give me your email address. So right off the bat, I started building a list, and I had over a couple hundred names before my book was even published. So guess what? When my book's published, these people have an interest in entrepreneurship. I want to go to them. So that's why I say, second, create some sort of document that allows you to download. Now here's an important thing too. Say you've created some traffic, and we'll talk about analytics and how you can see if anybody's actually looking at your site. If you put your download book up for free and nobody's downloading it, what makes you think anybody's going to pay for it? So really, I mean, maybe take the first chapter. What we do is we take the first interview that these authors do, and we publish that first interview as an ebook so that people can start downloading it. This book has gotten a lot of interest, scientists, because they've never seen a book about them. The other book that we're about to come out with is called Physicians in Transition. It's doctors who want to move into other fields, and there's a lot of interest there. So as soon as we're able to offer something to them, they're grabbing for it. They're hungry for this information. That's a good sign that there's probably good demand for this book. And then third, create your ebook for sale. We're going to talk about, well, I'll tell you right now, why an ebook. So as a print publisher, originally, who's really becoming a digital publisher, I can tell you that it's very expensive when you make a mistake. You know, this was a mistake. Purple and blue. He wanted this color. This is the color that came back from the printer. This was $100 to revise. Printer doesn't care. They're not going to eat it. We gave them the wrong file. This one kills me because I haven't made the revision yet because it's $50. We misspelled one of the interviewees' names. So I co-authored this with somebody else, and she misspelled the name. Okay? It's going to cost me $50, and not only that, I'm going to also lose distribution for a small period of time. So any books that are selling no longer going to be ordered while the book's being revised. So I can tell you about the drawbacks of a print book. The biggest benefits in my mind are endless revisions. There's no fee to revise your ebook. You can upload a new version to Kindle anytime you want. Kindle doesn't charge you. Ease of rapid distribution. You know, the amazing thing about digital publishing is how quickly you can get your book out there. You know, that can take up to a month to get one of those books back from the printer. We have to get a proof back, and then it's another couple weeks to get the books printed. But digital books, you know, you have them up in a matter of days. And where I'm noticing that, and think what you will about all of this stuff, you know what books I think are already the biggest sellers on Kindle? It's books about how to sell your book on Kindle. But that's only a short period of time. Do you remember when eBay first came out? The first guys that had their books out on how to sell on eBay made a fortune. So the great thing about digital books, which you need to appreciate as an author, is that the guy who comes up with the idea first and gets his book out there is going to really capitalize on it quickly, because there's nowhere else that this information exists. I've had a few ideas now and then, but of course by the time I got around to them it was too late. But you see a trend that's starting. You feel like you just discovered something. Okay, I'll admit the one that I have now. And I'm going to get into it. It's Google Editions. Have you guys heard of Google Editions? So it's Google's platform for selling ebooks that they've been sort of talking about, and they keep delaying the launch. It's going to compete directly with Amazon's Kindle and iBookstore from Apple. And the way they're setting themselves up is, if they do everything right, they could completely squash the whole market. They're going the open source model. They're not going to lock you into one reading device like Amazon's doing. Speculation, they're still kind of, anyway. But it's the kind of stuff, see how intrigued you were? Because nobody knows about it. So if you're the first person to get a book out about it, hallelujah, you're going to sell some books. All right, so the workflow of an author, and this comes through working with the 22 authors that I've worked with, going through a couple books myself. There's kind of this never-ending cycle that occurs as an author. And when I say author, I also mean blogger. Because when I say publish, the moment you hit post on a blog, you've just published. I'm telling you, that is publishing these days, is the moment you publish your content. So there's this wheel that you go through on a never-ending basis, and it's research, writing, editing, and promoting. This is sort of a never-ending wheel. And I just gave you some examples of when I say research. You can do interviews. You can do research and reading, research a topic, which I did actually for those sample books I told you guys about, the authors. That was a lot of reading and research. You can go to conferences, take classes and workshop, and of course the internet is an endless vacuum of research. Then it's very important that you take all this information, start writing. There are people who are like this constant learn mode and they never do anything with it. And I'll tell you, as a teacher, it sucks because I tell you all this information and then two of you go do something with it. It's frustrating because we want you to do something with this information. So when I write, simply, it's blogging, it's writing editorials, it's doing guest writing for magazines and newspapers. So I write articles for the Business Journal. I wrote some blog posts for Colorado Biz Magazine. I mean, it's anywhere you can get your name out there is very important. Guest articles, the things we were talking about, and commenting on other blogs is a form of writing as well. Editing. This probably stems more to the fact of interviews. Because if all you ever do is the interviews and you never edit them, then you really never truly absorb the value of that interview. So I really want people to make sure that not only are you writing, but you're actually going back and does it make sense? Can you find other people that you can exchange your articles with so that they can edit your content for you? Writer circles are great for editing. Constant revisions, doing presentations, and reorganizing your ideas. I will tell you that the other reason why I'm so adamant about digital publishing is that revisions are key to the cover, the title, how your ideas are organized. I mean, I'll be honest with you that most of the knowledge and nonfiction self-help book these days was written back with Napoleon Hill and Dale Carnegie, right? Every book since then has simply been a repackaging of these fairly simple principles, but everybody puts their own spin on it, right? And it's a new book, and marketing is huge. I'm reading more and more books on marketing, but they still come back to this marketing funnel, which Anita's going to love because I've listened to her, and she'll be glad to see I'm doing something with information she's sharing. And then promoting. This is key, and I think that what defines a successful author to me is how well they promote their book. So case in point, I love Gordon. Gordon, if you watch this, I love you. But he's not doing any promotion whatsoever on this book. So guess what? The book's not selling. And the only person who really promotes a book is the author. Nobody sells the book like the author themselves. The most of the books that we sell are out of our trunks. And if they're not out of our trunks, they're out of our virtual trunks, meaning we've somehow driven traffic to our website and they've then decided to purchase the book. But nobody else is going to have the passion or communicate the ideas like the author. So I use this workflow to kind of keep me on track. So it's just, I could have probably left this slide out, but vision, plan, act, track. You guys have seen things like this. Plan, implement, evaluate. You can sort of keep yourself on track, but related to being a writer, vision is finding the muse. And when I say muse, I can be your muse right now, meaning I'm generating some ideas for you. And you need to constantly find your source of muse, and it'll constantly change. And it just means that whatever is your inspiration or helping you extract ideas from up here, that's your muse. Research is part of the planning phase. Of course, writing and editing is the act. And then monitoring analytics, actually looking at the results of what you're doing is important. So, the marketing mindset of an author. Anita helped me with a lot of this stuff, whether or not she realizes it. Bits and pieces. This is the stuff that is basic marketing 101. I don't think I ever appreciated marketing until I had my own business. And you realize that no matter how good you are, it all comes down to marketing. There's a lot of crappy books out there, mediocre books, that have good marketers that sell far more copies than my books because they come from a marketing mindset. So I'm the reluctant marketer, the reluctant internet marketer, because I didn't have any respect for this stuff until I realized when we started doing some of it how it really made a difference in my business. So I want you to put on your marketing hat as an author. And there's really three things. There's the traffic. Basically, you're getting people to look at your material no matter where it is. From the traffic, you've got to have some way to capture the leads. If you're not, it's simply the traffic is driving by and nice to see you and you'll never see them again. And then you've got to make them an offer they can't refuse because everybody needs a sense of urgency. So it really is a matter of building trust. I believe that 50 interviews is the best thing and everybody should do it. However, when I look at the common thread of all my authors, it's trust. They trusted me and they believed in me and the concept. So you've got to have an opportunity to build trust, and a lot of what this is about is building trust. And then you guys have heard the rule about 7 impressions to get noticed. You can drive by something 7 times until the 7th time you actually don't even see it. That's just the way our brain works. So if you have a book and you're an author, why would you start making your first impressions when the book's done? You need to start making those impressions the moment the idea for your book is hatched. So that's why we're talking about getting that one blog post up. So that by the time the book's done, you're close to that 7th impression. You want that 7th impression to be the book's for sale because guess what? Chances are the interested person is going to buy your book. So I'm going to go through the 3 parts of the funnel. Generating traffic. So these are the common Facebook, LinkedIn. These sites I mentioned to you allow you to link back to your pages. Commenting on other blogs. I mentioned the value of the WordPress.com community. Forums, affiliates, these are actually kind of paying other people to drive traffic to your site. And of course, the old-fashioned paying for it. So you can get people to your website, that's great. But if you don't have the next piece, you're just throwing your money out the door. And Google throws out that $75 free voucher left and right because they know that the first $75, you're not going to have a clue. Most people aren't going to capture any leads from that $75. Yeah.
Is it better to drive them to a splash page or a home page where they get distracted?
General rule is you only want them to do one thing when you get them there. And you want it to be very specific to whatever that ad was. But yes, one ad, it's, what'd you call it?
Splash page.
Splash page or squeeze page? Yeah. I think that, Facebook especially, the general rule is that you don't try to sell a product directly from Facebook. That's a big mistake. All you want to do when they click on Facebook is get them to inquire deeper about it, which means is get their email address. Because nobody's selling anything directly. That's the first impression. You've built no trust. Most of us have an immediate skepticism when we click on an ad because, hey, this person's paying for it. If they're so good, why'd they have to pay for it to get me here? Lead capture. And this is something that is common with the professional speakers. The one common thread that all of them shared with me is they wish they were better at their due diligence with CRM or customer management, meaning an opportunity to speak is a golden opportunity to capture leads. And the event planners and the people that book them, unless you have a good system, you're not going to remember who they were 6 months later or 12 months later, and they're certainly not going to remember you. So Mark Sanborn, the most successful speaker in that book, said, Brian, I wish I would have started building my CRM database sooner in my speaking career because I lost the first 5 years of my contacts, which I could be going back to when times are tough, when you need speaking engagements. So this is really the most important thing in a lot of parts of business. No matter what you do, you want to have a way to capture your leads. So give them a free offer. Nobody's going to give you their email address unless you're giving them something in return. When I speak, I hand out these cards and I say, listen, if you fill out this card, I'm going to email you a copy of my ebook called The 5 Distinctions of Successful Entrepreneurs. And guess what? In order for them to get that ebook, they've got to give me their email address. But the little buttons you see occasionally, it says subscribe now, but there's no offer. I mean, people aren't looking to subscribe to more stuff. We all get too much crap in our email box already, right? So make sure you're offering something free. If there is a subscription, like Hub Pages has a subscription, but they offer some very valuable content. They make that very clear. Give them a free membership. I don't have enough evidence, although I take it back. Mike Levy, who's doing this book, he has put a ton of energy into his membership site. What a membership site is essentially is you have to log in with your username and password to get access to all the content that he has behind the firewall. He's got 150 subscribers in like 30 days because when people hit his website, he gives them little teasers of information. For them to stay, they have to actually sign in. And I think there's a tendency for them to come back because they're getting access to exclusive content. We always want what we can't have.
How do you kind of decide which one? Because those seem like two different things.
I think that on a splash page or a squeeze page, you probably want to first get their email address and then convince them to come join your membership. I don't know, Anita, do you have any thoughts?
Membership versus like just selling an ebook. So you give your blogs free versus...
I don't need to, a lot of people get frustrated when they want, I think you lose some people because they don't want to have another username and password. It really ticks them off.
Right.
So I would say offer both. The people who join, these are likely the people that are your golden people, right? Mm-hmm. If they join and become members, I mean, anytime somebody signs up for a membership for 50 entrepreneurs, I'm like, okay, these guys are very interested. So I'd sort of move them further down the funnel very quickly. And there's a lot of ways to talk about funnels, but essentially, if you think about the life value of a customer, if your life value of your customers is $15 and you sold them one book and that's all you're ever going to get from that person, you have no business model. You're going to be dead before you know it. Unless you are a Walmart, right, where you've got tons of products, or unless you're a publisher that has tons of books, maybe that'll help. But generally, the idea of a funnel is you offer them something for free or very low cost up here, and as they get further down the funnel, the dollar amount of what they spend with you gets higher and higher, to the point where you've got maybe 10% of your customers paying you, maybe $1,000 over the life of your relationship. The life value of a customer to my dad, who's a lawyer, is in the upper 6 figures. So, I mean, that gives you an example of the far degree of a lawyer, how much income they can generate from a good client. So the life value. Free trial, low-cost product, reason to act now, don't make me think. There's a book, there's a lot of books. For some reason, this guy's book gets mentioned a lot because everybody remembers it. It tells you about sticky titles. This book, I don't think is that great, but it's a sticky title. And everybody always mentions it every time I hear them talking about web design. But the whole idea is that when people get to your site, you don't want to make them think. We're pretty simple people, and we simply want to make it real easy. And I think there's been tests when you ask for a username and password or social security number, people just fill it all out because we're just sort of on auto drive a lot of times.
Yeah, you want them to react.
Yeah. And then offers. So you get them down the funnel. For crying out loud, make them an offer. If you've got them in the funnel and you've got nothing to offer them, you've missed the boat. So these are some of the offers that you can give them. Give them a discount coupon. We offer a $5 coupon pretty quickly to somebody who gets in our funnel. They sign up for a subscription, the first thing they get is a $5 coupon. Give them a free membership, offer them this exclusive membership, a free trial to something. This works on me a lot, especially if there's no credit card required. I've signed up for a lot of free trials for 30 days because, hey, if it's a trial, it must mean there's something of value that people are paying for, so I'd like to taste it. And then, of course, a reason to act now. And that was on my last slide. Okay, the only thing different is the We'll move on. So titles and taglines. I mentioned to the example of "Don't Make Me Think," how good a good tagline is, and we're going to go into these in a second. I'm going to give you some examples. If this is what I learned, is if you think about your book title, oh, sorry, Steve, as the title of a workshop, and you wanted people to actually pay to go to that workshop, what would you call it? And why are you calling your book anything different? Think about it. So guess what the new book title is for this? Because my most popular, I speak on it, I have a couple different titles for my talks. The most popular topic that people want me to come speak on is called The 5 Distinctions of Successful Entrepreneurs. So this book is going to be revised, and it's going to be called The 5 Distinctions of Successful Entrepreneurs. And I hope to come back to you guys in 6 months or a year and say, guess what? When I changed the title, the book started to sell. Yes?
I have a question. A thought occurred to me when you were talking about Kindle, because it's so easy to upload your book. Would that be a place to actually research titles?
Yes.
Put your book up with several different titles and see what sells?
So she's asking if you put your book on Kindle, or putting your book on Kindle, is that a great opportunity for you to test titles to see if it sells? And absolutely, you reinforced another reason why I'm such an advocate of publishing digitally before you spend money. I'll be honest with you, while John and I love this title, 50 Athletes Over 50, the majority of the feedback we get is, what the heck is that about? Because it's so generic. These are masters athletes. These are extreme athletes that do amazing feats, and these people are all over 50. So we need to retitle this book. And typically when you get picked up by a publisher as a self-published author, the first thing they're going to do is scrap your cover and scrap your title. And they're going to bring in people who know how to do this stuff. I'm not saying I do yet. I love this cover. Of all the covers so far, I think this is the best one. And I think Kirsten's as well. Kirsten's book has sold very well. She stumbled on the title, What It Takes to Earn $1 Million in Direct Sales. What it takes to make more money than your parents. So you're getting the point. What it takes to be a successful property manager. It's likely the new titles of our books, as I've been getting encouraged that 50 Interviews is a little obscure. And again, it's not about you. Does the title speak to you or speak to your reader? The reader who doesn't care about you, they just care about themselves, right? We all care about ourselves. Are they going to be entertained, educated, and offered to buy more? That's really what we want at a deep down level, is we want to be entertained, we want to be educated, and we want to have more of whatever it is we enjoy. The reason why Twin Peaks and like The Office is so successful is because they're giving us more. If they just stopped with one episode, we would be left hanging, right? We'd be like, we want more. When Seinfeld went off the air, a lot of us are still bent out of shape about that. The last quality TV show we ever had. All right, so taglines and titles. So these are some examples of some friends of mine. So Laura Lee, Midlife Crisis Queen. It's never too late to find out who you might have been. Right?
I like it.
Now, Laura Lee, why aren't you calling your book this? Laura Lee, she knows this. Her book is called Midlife Crisis Queen. No. What is her book called? Well, it's not called this. It's called something else.
She can't call that. That's supposed to be the book.
Really?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Maybe that's why. But until she gets big time, she shouldn't worry about that. The Concierge Mom. What moms think about when they have 2 minutes. And she does microblogging, and she's very successful at it. I helped her get started on WordPress.com, and she's got tons of traffic. What it takes to earn $1 million in direct sales. $1 million achievers will reveal the secrets to becoming wildly successful. You know, these are the kind of taglines in addition to your cover or to your title. And then 50 young entrepreneurs, what it takes to make more money than your parents. Covers. Sorry about the barrage here, but I'll be honest with you. I look at books. When you become a publisher, you'll never look at a book the same again. I really can't just pick up a book anymore. And I can tell people who publish books because they always pick up my book and they start looking at things differently. You know, they're looking at things that most people could care less about, but we notice as publishers. So this is a powerful cover. I mean, are these covers that draw to you? And why reinvent the wheel? What you guys should do is look at the big-time, the nonfiction books that are the top sellers. There is a lot of money that goes behind these covers. They may look simple. I love linchpin. But here's what's important. So first of all, more art, less words. I figured this out. You know, it's very important. This isn't my favorite cover. It's way too wordy. This one is horrible because there's no picture whatsoever. So you want to have pictures. Actually, this one is one of my favorites because it's got people's faces on it. You know, it's kind of 3D.
For ebooks, you need the pictures?
So here's what's important as an ebook. It needs to look good as a thumbnail because the only thing that people are ever going to see of your ebook is the thumbnail. So it needs to be something like this. Seth Godin knows what he's doing. You can notice it a mile away. You can't even read anything else. Look what he did with Cow, a purple cow. Tribes. I like this cover just personally, but it really just needs to look good as a thumbnail here. And then the 3D is interesting, subtle, but when we switched the books to actually being 3D images, we started to sell more books. Because when people see something like this, although it's shaped like a book cover, they think it's like a website. They don't know it's an actual book. But when they see this, they realize, oh, that's an actual book.
On that one, are you speaking just to the numeral 10 coming out in 3D?
No, I'm talking about the whole book as a three-dimensional object.
Got it. Got it.
Is that a picture, or did you just mock it up?
What?
Did you actually take a picture of that, or is it a mock-up with the cover?
No, they sent me their pictures, and the graphic designer put them in there.